four main categories. There's the one form of passive, three form of active. The passive form is a simple wicking system. It's been used for thousands of years and is probably most economical on large scale. However, it doesn't actively increase the oxygen to the roots of the plant, so it doesn't increase the growth in the same way as the others. It just helps to deal with watering issues. In all the active systems, they're known as active because you're actively pumping air and water through the systems. This is just a standard air pump for a fish tank. It's from Walmart, one of these little cheapy ones. And this will aerate your entire nutrient solution in your reservoir through tubing, just standard tubing. This is an air check valve. They come with these to stop the air or the water from backing into the system. But basically, the systems are very, very easy. This is an example of a deep water system, which is the best by far to start with. These are not only more expensive to get into because they're harder to make for yourself, but they're also these are more expensive because it's harder to make them for you. The fact that you need a large waterproof flat tray, even basin. But also, here you tend to, all things being equal, have more water in your reservoir. This reservoir holds about 10 gallons for 6 small plants. And in this system, you can basically assume very, very few problems with pH or salt buildups or things like that. One of the biggest issues down here in the valley with these kinds of systems, you can't use tap water. You have to use like reverse osmosis water or go to one of those windmill stations or something because the salt content in the water in our tap down here is astronomical for what's considered okay for agriculture. So it builds up 10 times faster in these systems than it does in a traditional salt buildup in the ground, which again will kill plants. But I've seen tomatoes killed off of tap water in like 3 weeks. It took 3 weeks of using tap water. And you can actually still see the damage in this lid. I brought this lid for a reason, because it still has salt buildup all underneath the bottom of it, where they all died.
Wow.
But yeah, you can see all the minerals built up in here. And this is all just pure NaCl, just salt, and even inside the reservoir it's just chocked with salt. This is a recirculating pump, which I guess I should post on here. This is your standard fountain pump for outdoor fountains. And the difference between a deep water culture and a bubble-ponic system is simply this. With a deep water culture, you just have the roots reaching into the gigantic reservoir of water, and they're not suffocating because it's being aerated by the air stone. When you add a water pump, you can also add these direct site pumps. You start with these little T-connectors, and you can put them onto this irrigation hosing. This is just from Home Depot. Mr. Landscaper, it's a big box of it for like $10. And these you tap into these larger lines, and then so you create what most people call a spine. It looks kind of like a spine once you have dozens of them hanging off. And you can have them run. A pump this size is actually way too big for this. A pump this size will run 20 to 40 plants. This is this box. You use the tiniest little pump that you find at Lowe's or Home Depot. They're like $15 probably. This is probably a $40 pump. That's from my big flood tray thing. But once you have these, it's pretty simple. Some people like to just run them in just like that and have them dripping constantly, while others will put in drip valves. This is a drip valve. It limits it to, say, ½ gallon of water per hour, and we'll constantly have that drip. Or the method I'm currently using is I get a mister tip, which is ever so slightly different at head, and then it just mists on a timer. Every 15 minutes it'll go off. And by actively adding into the systems like that, you'll be able to increase the yield of basically any plant at least 2 to 10-fold. It depends on the plant. USDA statistics have the growth variation from active hydroponic systems as anywhere from, it was 114% to 22,000% for heads of lettuce. Heads of lettuce benefit from this more than anything else. They are a plant that is limited by their water uptake, a water-bound plant. Basically, the limiting reagent in their chemical reactions is water. So by having access to these reservoirs of water, you can grow a head of lettuce in 17 days in just normal sunlight. You need to do it in the winter here because the heat will kill lettuce. There are different variations. This is for larger plants. I once had one of those miniature lemon trees in here. I thought it was pretty cute, but it eventually ended up dying during that hurricane where we had that blackout for a week or so. So that was the end of him. This was his reservoir, just a simple lid, with that bucket, and I didn't even have a recirculating pump. It was just the standard air pump aerating it. And in here you could grow, a small fruiting tree or something of that nature. The only reason you need the medium is to hold the plant in place under its own weight. The heavier the plant, normally a fruiting plant will become quite heavy on top because of the fruits, and so it'll start to tilt to either side. With the rooting medium, you need more of it for the heavier plants. So while this would cut for a small tomato plant, if you were growing one of those massive tomato trees like you could nowadays do, you'd need something like this. But yeah, this is mostly for like herbs and strawberries. It's really good for strawberries. You can lift it up high and let the rooting dangle low. But yeah, this is the basic system. They're really, really easy to make. Besides the rocks and the net cups, everything's from Home Depot or Walmart. And you can get rocks at Home Depot that are ever so slightly different. They're called lava rocks. I don't have any on me, but you've seen the little red rocks people use in their garden displays. But they'll work just as well. They'll actually hold water better than these. They're just not pH balanced, so they're not as perfect. And I'm a perfectionist for these. The more perfect everything set up in the beginning, the easier it is. Like I literally can ignore these for a week and be like, oh yeah, I have plants growing out on my balcony. I should go look. And it's pretty fun to be able to forget to water things because I'm really bad about that. But these systems are really easy. I normally keep them doubled up. I only brought a single one here, but I normally keep them doubled up because these aren't Rubbermaid tubs aren't technically meant to hold 70 pounds of water. So by keeping two of them, not only do you add rigidity, you also reduce the chance of any leaking problems. If the inner one starts leaking, it'll create very little pressure in the outer one. And so it's all basically pretty simple. This is a double pump. A single pump will run you like $10. This one will run like $18. The tubs are like $5 or $6 each, so you're like $20 for the basics. And I think I paid $5 for 10 of these cups and $5 for a bag of this Hydroton. And I ordered all that off the internet from hightechgrowing.supplies.com, htgsupply.com. Plug. But yeah, it's really, really fun because I love watching plants grow, but I'm not very patient. So watching it do it 4 times as fast is just breathtaking. And it's really simple. I encourage anyone to try it. All you need is this, and you can either cut these holes out by hand, or here I drilled them out with a hole saw they use for drilling out doorknobs and stuff like that. But if you have a power drill, you can buy a hole saw for like $5, $10, and you get perfect little holes like that. Always buy 1/8 of an inch smaller than your actual net cup. So these are 3-inch net cups, and the hole was drilled with a 2 7/8 drill. That way they fit snugly. But yeah, it's incredibly simple. That's really all there is to it. Like I would literally at this point plug this into the wall, put a seed in here, and walk away.
So you don't need to start with like a seedling or a sapling?
No, I could put a seedling if I wanted. Most people would. Most people use those like propagation trays. That's like a flat tray with a little humidity dome. And most people will propagate under that and then add the little puck or the little thing in the middle. You remove some of this medium for that because it's too full for the puck. But that's how most people do it. I do it that way. But I could just drop a seed in there. I've seen other people do it from that method. They're like, nah, I'm cheap. I don't want to waste the 14 cents a puck. I'm like, all right, well, enjoy.
That's great.
But yeah, a system like this is good for basically anything up to tomatoes. I wouldn't suggest anything bigger than that. And tomatoes, again, probably stick with cherry tomatoes, not like the 2-pound giant genetic freaks. For that, you want a bigger bucket like that. But I don't know. I figure questions is the best way to explain this. Is there anyone want to know about it? It's yeah.
So on that part over there, you said you grew a lemon tree.
Yeah, a small lemon tree was valley lemons.
It gave you lemons?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I had it for 18 months, and when I got it, till it first started giving me lemons was 4 or 5 months. It was really, really quick. It was much quicker than it should have been. It should be about 2 years for a sapling to start actually giving out lemons, due to the accelerated growth. Most plants are limited in their growth by one of many factors. It's generally you're either going to be limited by the amount of water your roots are getting, the amount of oxygen that your roots are getting, the amount of CO2 your leaves are getting, and then the amount of light that you're measured in photons that your leaves are getting. So these are the major limiting factors. You also have nutrients and things like that. So if you put no nutrients into a tub, or you've not fed any fertilizer to a plant, that could often be its limiting factor. But it's very unlikely that your NPK NPK fertilizers and PDK.
And the gestation period?
These, excuse me?
The gestation period, you know, how some plants don't give more than twice a year.
Yeah, and every plant is different in that sense. Some their reproduction is limited upon photo period. That's a photo period on it. Show my whiteboards. But yeah, a photo period plant, period, is limited by the amount of light it's receiving. For example, it's very common that if